still help you put your ideas in motion and share them with King County. Check this out. Fort Culture is now offering grants in 3 disciplines: art, heritage, and historic preservation. Apply by April 28th. For more information, go to fortculture.org. What's that date again? The deadline to apply for a Fort Culture grant is April 28th. Are you interested in getting your project financially supported? Fort Culture wants to support your cultural activities and share them with King County. Do you do creative work in the arts? Fort Culture is now offering grants in 3 disciplines: arts, heritage, and historic preservation. Apply by April 28th. I have some ideas. For more information, go to fortculture.org. As a cultural funding agency for King County, Fort Culture wants to support your creative work. For more information, go to fortculture.org.
Phil-Am Radio, servicing the Filipino and Filipino Americans all over the world. Phil-Am Radio, streaming live in the internet every Tuesday from 1 o'clock to 2:30 p.m. Shuttle USA time. We are your host, Kuya Bert Kawili, Emma Heron, and
Manny Panganiban.
Phil-Am Radio.
My name is BK, International Talent Scout. I'm bringing a brand new show to you called BK Presents. 30 minutes, non-stop, your favorite in gospel music studio session. Going deep into interviews with your favorite artists, producers, and their engineers. You and your music. Concert previews and concert reviews. Get it all on bkpresents.com. Here we go.
2021 is the year of the local election. From fire district commission to school board to city council, there are over 300 offices up for election this year in King County alone. With so many moving pieces, it's important to know what paperwork is due when. That's where King County Elections comes in. While we can't teach you how to campaign, we can teach you how to make your run official. Join us for one of our upcoming candidate workshops in Thursday, April 1st, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, April 17th, 10 a.m. to noon. Thursday, April 29th, 10 a.m. to noon. Join us in April to learn the ins and outs of becoming a candidate here in King County.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not driving my sweet AMC Pacer through the car wash, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. You missed a spot.
Hey! Welcome. This is Brenda Charles-Edwards, the host of Seniors Matter. We are live every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on www.rainieravenueradio.world, your community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, the Rainier Avenue Radio App, and Alexa. Seniors Matter invites a variety of guests to discuss issues and activities that may impact the lives of older adults, their families, and the community. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section on Facebook. The doubleheader high school football today is at the Memorial Stadium with Lakeside versus Cleveland at 5 and Franklin versus Lincoln at 8. Happy birthday to Rainier Avenue Radio. We've done 4 years. I can't believe it. 4 years. Yay! If you're interested in knowing what is the best gift you can give yourself and your loved ones, join me on Zoom for a group or individual session on end-of-life planning. Call me at 206-683-2636. My guest today is Doris O'Neal, Director of the YWCA Seattle King County Snohomish, and runs a domestic violence service program. Welcome to the show, Doris. So good to see you. Hey. Oh my, Doris, you have been in this profession for 25 years. I just can't imagine the stress that you've gone through and just the heartache, because I know you're emotionally involved with it. But one thing is, we always call it domestic violence. What's the preferred term?
Well, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, they're almost about the same. And intimate partner violence is violence that is perpetrated against an intimate partner. So a lot of times it's girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, those intimate relationship, and it has physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, religion abuse, medical abuse. There's a lot of different type of abuses that fall up under that intimate partner. It's about power and control over an intimate partner.
Wow, that's a lot. See, Doris, could you turn your volume up just a little bit? Because I want to make sure that everybody hears you clearly.
Okay, what do I do?
Down the bottom tray, it should be a little microphone or for speakers.
Audio.
Or maybe it's me. Well, let's keep going and we'll see how it works.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Let me see if I can get it.
So
okay,
what tools does the African American community need to address this public health issue? And I don't know if people think of it as a public health issue, but it definitely is.
It definitely is, because domestic violence takes the lives of many survivors almost as much as, other public health issues that we have in the world. And the African American woman is more likely to be murdered in those type of relationships than other races. And why is that? It varies. There's a lot of different reasons. We don't want to call the police. Mm-hmm. We think it's a family issue. We take it to our church. We are embarrassed.
So there's shame involved.
There's shame involved, yes.
Continue.
And, go ahead.
No, you continue.
Oh, there's shame involved. And so it's like a hidden killer, right? Because a lot of folks will not even know that a survivor is experiencing that type of abuse, because we are made to be strong, right, and look strong, and we don't appear to be the victim. So in the fact that we are afraid to call the law enforcement out has a lot to do with it also. We have, with our programming, we have safety plan with our African American survivors on what to do when you call law enforcement out. And that is very unfortunate, because not other races have to do that type of safety planning. And
discrimination.
I'm sorry?
No, that wasn't me. Go ahead.
Okay. We don't want to call law enforcement out because we really want the abuse to stop. Mm-hmm. But we don't want the father of our children to be killed during this. We don't want to be arrested ourselves, because many times African American women are arrested and charged for DV-related crime.
Now, why is that?
Because the Black woman is not, the stereotype of we are angry Black women. We express ourselves in a different type of way. Right. And so if law enforcement's come out and we're not acting like the victim of being timid and quiet, then they will sometimes make it be where you are the aggressor, because it's a mandate arrest law. So they have to arrest somebody. So if we're talking with our hand and got our voice hyped up, then we appear to be the aggressive person.
I did notice that instead of saying victim, you've been saying survivor.
Yes. Because many women, and there are some men also, but many women that come out of these type of relationship, they're in surviving mode. They're the victim. The court system always refer to you as a victim. Mm-hmm. They're a victim when things are being perpetrated upon them. But if they survive it, now they're in a survival mode. And so we don't like, well, in the DV world, we say survivors more than we will say victim.
All right, that makes sense. So How does IPV and FV, and what are those acronyms, impact the family dynamic?
IPV is intimate partner violence,
Okay.
and it's domestic violence. I think, sometimes in our African American community, we don't identify with the words of domestic violence, and so I wanted to have both wording, intimate partner violence, because that kind of explains it also for people who are not really familiar with the term, or they hear domestic violence and what they hear is, well, it's physical, but it is not just physical, it is emotional, right, and all the other ones that I just described. And many women think, well, he doesn't hit me, so I'm not in a domestic violence relationship. But that
we know that mental abuse is just as bad, if not worse.
Right. Okay. So I need you to get down. Okay.
So how does the criminal justice system make it harder for African Americans, especially the community, to call the police? I know you've said that for the woman, if she appears to be the angry Black woman, then she's going to jail. But what characteristics does the male have that would send him to jail?
Well, when law enforcement comes out on a domestic violence call, that's one of the most dangerous calls for law enforcement. And because they're coming out to a situation that they have no idea what's going on, a lot of emotions involved, a lot of times there may be a weapon. And so when law enforcement comes out, there's already that tension between the African American people and law enforcement. So when law enforcement come out, and if that abusive person doesn't act in a certain way, there is a great possibility that that person will be murdered on sight. Just dealing with law enforcement. And for survivors that are calling law enforcement, we call law enforcement to protect us, right? We right. want them to protect. And we really want the abuse to stop. And we call law enforcement thinking that that's what's going to happen, or that they're just going to make us stop, not understanding that there is a mandate arrest law. And so the law enforcement has to make an arrest on somebody. And for a lot of times it is the men who are the perpetrator. And so they're going to make the arrest. But then there's a lot of times that the survivor may be arrested. And we see that a lot. And so because she's not appearing to be a victim and he's appearing to be a perpetrator, they're going to make an arrest on one of those parties. And a lot of times when law enforcement is involved with our Black men, it doesn't always go the right way.
So Doris, when the police come out, do they bring a social worker with them?
No, they do not.
So I guess that's one of the reasons with defund the police, they're talking about there should be social workers, but I definitely think there should be social workers, but I think there also has to be police there to protect the social worker.
There is a program called the Victim Support Team, and they are advocates, they're volunteer advocates that do come out with law enforcement in the Seattle area. And they try to secure, once everything has been secured by law enforcement, the advocates will work with the families to try to help them get to a safe place or whatever it is to get them situated. And that's mainly on the weekend, but nothing, on the weekdays.
So now, wait a minute. So let's say that the husband or the boyfriend, whatever, the male gets arrested. Then this team comes in and they help the female. And
they help the surviving person.
The surviving person, right? Because it could be male or female.
Yeah, it could be male. I always like to make that clear because our men will say, well, there's men victims also.
Right. That's true.
Most of the time it is the woman. And so these advocates will come out. Maybe it's not safe for her to stay there. maybe she needs some food for the kids just to hold her over till the weekend so she can get in contact with, another agency till Monday. And so, yeah, that's in the Seattle area, and it's called the Victim Support Team.
Well, what do the other areas have?
Nothing. We don't have any after-hour support, and we don't have, well, I won't say we, other areas do not have that type of service available.
So is this a county issue or a state issue? I mean, why aren't there programs, and who would fund them?
For that program that I was just speaking of, that's funded by the city of Seattle, but it has not, I think at one time it might have been in Auburn, but that was many years ago. And so as of right now, all the cities outside of King County or Seattle, we don't have that type of services. Very much needed, but
That's
we don't.
scary.
They don't have it. Yeah.
So then, speaking about the survivor, I know people say, well, why don't you just leave? But I also know you can't just leave. You need to have preparation. Can you tell us about that?
Well, that's a question that people will always ask. Why don't you just leave? I wouldn't let anyone, just beat me up. I would leave. Leaving for a survivor is the most lethal time, because when a person is realizing that they're losing that power and control, that's when the violence becomes more intense. So with survivors, we call it safety planning, because you have to plan to leave safely, timely. Only that survivor knows what that is, right?
What the time is?
Yeah, she knows what time you may go to work, or she may go to work. She knows what time you may go to sleep, all of those things. And so we safety plan with the survivor to, get things that they need. We safety plan getting the things that you need for the children, because once it's time for you to leave, you don't have time to be grabbing everything, right?
Right.
And so we want to put stuff in a place that, they can be able to access it very quickly.
Well, that makes sense. And it also makes sense that people need to understand that it isn't that easy. You just can't jump up on a whim.
Right. And the question should be asked is not why doesn't she leave, but why does that person abuse? That should be the question.
That's the bigger question.
Abusive? Yeah. Because it's not the survivor's fault that this person is abusive. So why is that person abusive should be the question more so.
So given that thought, when the abuser has been arrested, A, how long do they stay in jail? And B, is any help offered to them?
So once a person is arrested, they're booked into jail. They will have an arraignment. They will have a bail setting. It depends on the crime that was committed. How long they stay in there is depending on if they can afford bail or not. Or if they get released, the judge sometimes released. A lot of times on DV call, the judge will not, they cannot be released until they go before a judge. Once they go to arraignment, a no contact order will be issued, that person shall have no contact with the other individual. So it really varies on how long they may stay in jail. What we have seen for our African-American women, that, we say once the cuffs goes on, life is never the same, because they have been arrested in their home. They've been arrested in front of their children. They have been taken to jail. And once they get in jail, some of them have never been to jail before. They're booked, they're searched. And then if they place a bail, a lot of times it's not easy to come up with $500. And so then we see survivors, they're in jail, they want to get out, they lose their job, they can lose their housing, child protective services can be involved. And one of the biggest things is we lose our dignity.
Right.
Our dignity of an example. One young lady said that when she, hold on, my dog wants to make noise here. One young lady, she said, because she is showing her emotion, they felt like she had mental health issues. And so they put her in a padded room and stripped her of all of her clothing and made her sit in the jail cell butt naked for a whole night because she was showing her emotion. And
Oh my gosh.
She'd never been to jail before. She was hysterical. She was crying. And so the dignity of that was just like, she didn't have any, like, how dare you, make me sit here butt naked for a whole night. And so going to jail can be so traumatizing. You've already been traumatized. Now you're being, another form of being traumatized. And so a lot of times our survivors will plead guilty to get out of jail.
Okay, so now wait a minute. Wait just a minute. So now they put this lady in a padded room with no clothes on.
Yes.
And so did she plead guilty?
Well, we have a program called Survivors First, and it's a partnership with the King County Prosecutor's Office and the YWCA. And so what the prosecutor did was they look at cases for victimization. So have there been other police calls? Have there been a protection order filed? Have she worked with a DV advocate before? And they determined that she was really a victim, although she was now a defendant. And after a while, they actually dismissed the case and referred the case to us. And so we pick it up from there. We make contact with the survivor and try to offer supportive services, option, having someone in the seat that looks like her, and try to support her so that she does not have to go back through that system, right? And so far, we have gotten 130 referrals, and out of that 30, and they're all African-American women, and we have been able to see them get cases dismissed and decline and services, because one thing we know a lot, too, with our African-American women is that we don't know about services in that effect, right? Because the only time we hear about it is if the law enforcement's been called, if it has happened, the children went to school and said, I seen mommy, daddy hit mommy last night, or there some type of system has entered into their lives that they will hear about it. And so a lot of survivors do not even know that we exist, right? They do not even know. And so when we are able to provide those resources and option and care to the women, we have seen them succeed and move on. They realize I do not have to stay in this abusive relationship. I have option.
But do they also help them with learning what not to get involved with the next time? I mean, to recognize the signs, because usually if they're in one abusive relationship and they get out of it, don't they have a tendency to get into it again because they're not distinguishing or knowing what is good, a good relationship, a positive relationship?
Right. And that's what we do as advocates. We do domestic violence education. We talk about the different type of abuses. We talk about why we stay, why we leave, and why we come back. We talk about red flags, the red flags, because a lot of times when we're talking with the survivor, the red flags were there at the very beginning of the relationship. But if you don't know what you're looking for, then you don't know that this is, not healthy, a healthy relationship. So we really talk about the red flags, but then we want to talk about the green flags, which are considered the healthy relationship. And so that now that she has gotten this DV education in her next relationship, she knows what red flags look like. Those are unhealthy, right? And that's the whole goal of our advocacy, is to inform and educate the women so that they can recognize these abusive behaviors and to, default from that right away. Like, oh, he texts me all the time and that's so cool. No, that's not respectful. If you told this person I'm in a meeting or I'm at school, I'll call you when I get out, and here this person continues to text you. That's not healthy. And so we point those things out. So as they move on in their lives, we talk about tools. We want to provide them with tools that they can put in their toolbox so that when they move on and encounter another relationship, they can determine up front if this is going to be healthy or not.
Right. And I wish there was some way that same teaching can be done to the perpetrator. We know all of this. They most likely were abused themselves, right? Growing up.
Right.
So for them, I guess it looks like it's normal.
For the perpetrators, it's a learned behavior, right? Domestic violence abuse is a learned behavior. And so they have a batterers treatment program for those that have been arrested for abuse. And like you and I have spoke, it's hard to talk about the Black woman and not talk about the Black man also, because we want to be family. We want to be together. And so what I've heard is, we provide all of this great information to the survivor, but we don't provide anything for the perpetrator. And so as we look at the movement moving forward, those conversations are being had, and we're asking the men to step up and, be an ally for themselves also. So there are some men programs out there and mentorship programs out there that the men are taking charge of. And there has been some training for that also. And there's a grant coming out right now to support that very process. It just came out yesterday. And so it needs to happen more. And it needs to be within our own community and not something that the city has set up for them. Because I sat on that committee when they were revisiting it, and I said, we have to make it affordable and we have to make it culturally competent to our Black men. Right. I work with one young man, and he said when he was growing, I asked him who was his role model growing up. And he said, his grandfather was abusive. His mother his uncle was abusive. Everybody, all the men figures in his life were abusive. So now what do we expect from him? Because he learned this behavior from everybody in his family, and he didn't want to be that way. He wanted to be different. So I know we're looking at time here that's gone by so fast.
Yes, I see I have 1 minute.
Yeah.
How can people get a hold of you?
My email is DONEAL at YWCA, and I'll put it in the chat too.
Okay.
DONEAL at YWCA works.org. And my phone number is 280-9961.
Great. So Doris, can you come back so we can continue this?
I can.
Okay, we'll talk about the timing later. I just want to say thank you to my audience for listening. Thank you to Miss Doris O'Neal for joining us. Be safe, live your life like it's golden. Blessings on your day. Happy Easter. And the coronavirus special edition is next. Talk to you soon, Doris. Bye. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Ray.